Karlyn Ramirez joined the Army so she could see the world and make a difference. And her world changed drastically when she was deployed overseas and met and fell in love with fellow soldier Maliek Kearney. After a whirlwind romance that included a baby and a wedding, the bloom soon wore off the rose as the couple battled infidelity, jealousy, and eventually, murder. Hello and welcome to The Dark Side of Love. I'm your host, Bianca Sloan, author of suspense novels about the dark side of love. And this week I'm putting a spotlight on the case I'm calling Enlistment in Murder. Karlyn Ramirez was born on April 10, 1991, to Susan Garcia Ramirez and Jesus Chuy Ramirez in tiny Beeville, Texas. One of 3 girls and 2 boys, Karlyn and her close-knit family eventually relocated to the border town of Del Rio, Texas, which also served as the home of the Laughlin Air Force Base. Susan described her daughter to Dateline as, quote, real calm and quiet. Petite Karlyn, with her dark hair, dark eyes, and wide, welcoming smile, loved the rodeo, raising game roosters, and bull riding. Impromptu dance parties in the Walmart parking lot with her girlfriends and singing whenever and wherever were also passions. Karlyn graduated from Comstock High School in 2009 and headed to a local community college. Her sights initially set on becoming a nurse before she decided to switch her focus to criminal justice. After obtaining her associate's degree, everyone assumed a 4-year university was in Karlyn's future. However, 21-year-old Karlyn shocked everyone by hitching herself to the Army instead. Karlyn hailed from a military family, as her grandfather and aunt had both been in the Air Force, her mom in the Army Reserves. Karlyn wanted to see what was in the world beyond Del Rio and knew that being in the military meant travel, new adventures, new sights, new sounds. After her enlistment, Karlyn trained in IT before being deployed to South Korea in 2013. And it was there that she met 35-year-old Maliek Kearney. Maliek is a chemical weapons specialist, which is a big deal. And as FBI agent Jonathan Schaefer told Snapped Killer Couples, Maliek was, quote, highly regarded and highly decorated for the work that he did. He was well thought of by his colleagues in the military and took great pride in his military service. Karlyn definitely liked what she saw, impressed not only by his good looks, but his fearlessness, military prowess, and his swagger. Karlyn's sister Roxana Ramirez told Snap her little sister liked that, quote, he was a very independent, a very confident man. He really knew what he wanted. She fell completely head over heels for him. Her mom, Susan, echoed this to Dateline, saying, quote, she was attracted to his confidence, to his air, to the way he carried himself. The feeling is mutual. And within 6 months, Karlyn and Maliek were serious. As in, Karlyn was pregnant. The couple get engaged, and Karlyn's sister Roxana told Snap that her sister was on cloud 9, saying that she was, quote, happy that he wanted to build a family and take care of both of them. However, before they got married, Karlyn was reassigned to Fort Meade in Severn, Maryland, while Maliek received orders to report to Fort Jackson in South Carolina. However, another problem crops up, as military rules around those of certain ranks being able to marry were about to change. Since Maliek was of a higher rank than Karlyn, these new rules could have put their entire relationship in the shredder. There is little time to waste because on April 23, 2015, Karlyn gave birth to a baby girl she named Catalea Vale. Maliek made it to the hospital just in time for Catalea's birth, and finally, 3 months after their baby's arrival, Karlyn and Maliek got married in South Carolina. In August of 2015, Karlyn and Vale, as they call the baby, returned to Maryland so that Karlyn can resume her military service. The plan is for Maliek to eventually join his wife and baby full-time in Maryland. But in the meantime, Karlyn meets fellow soldier Marissa Manth, who is a single mom, and the two decide to room together in a townhouse. It's the perfect solution until Maliek could permanently relocate to Maryland. Though the distance will be a struggle, the couple was determined to stick together. August 25th, 2015. A maintenance man out doing work in Karlyn's neighborhood notices that a sliding door in the back of the townhouse is open. It's a bit of a sore thumb in this quiet neighborhood, which houses many members of the military, So much so, it's enough to prompt him to call 911. Police arrive at the townhome and indeed find this open door. It doesn't seem as though anyone is home, and they proceed with caution through the house, since they have no idea what they're dealing with. The downstairs is clear, but when they search the upstairs bedrooms, they discover a woman lying on the floor. They're also horrified to see that there is a baby cradled in the woman's arms. Karlyn and Marissa's superior, Sergeant First Class in the U.S. Army Leroy McDaniels, arrives at the scene and reveals that Marissa is away on vacation and that Karlyn hadn't come into work that morning. Fortunately, the baby was sleeping and is okay. However, the body is that of her mother, Karlyn. Karlyn Ramirez was 24 years old. Karlyn was shot 3 times at point-blank range, once in the side, 2 times in her chest. Her sweatpants and underwear were pulled around her ankles, and she has bruising and scratches, which immediately leads investigators to the assumption that sexual assault is a possibility that they need to explore. A search of the crime scene reveals a condom wrapper in the living room and a used condom in the trash, lending credence to the possibility of a sexual assault. FBI Special Agent Jonathan Schaefer told Snap, quote, "The person who committed the crime was very methodical and was trying to throw investigators off of their scent. Points away from a crime of opportunity or robbery gone wrong to a very much premeditated crime. The murder is a shock to this quiet military community, leaving everyone reeling." As Karlyn's sister Roxana told Snap, quote, "It was the worst physical and emotional pain that I have ever felt in my life." She went on to call it soul-crushing. To learn more about Karlyn and try to figure out if there was anyone who would have had a reason to hurt the young newly-wedded mother, investigators questioned Karlyn's superior, Sergeant McDaniels, and he drops a pretty brutal truth bomb on them. He tells them that he recently received a call from both Karlyn and Maliek, where Maliek informed him that Karlyn was having a sexual relationship with another soldier, and Karlyn herself had to confess that it was true. Yikes. Can you imagine having to tell your boss something like that? The reason why she had to tell her boss is because the military does not take kindly to infidelity, which Maliek knew, obviously, because he's also a soldier. And as Guillermo Contreras, a reporter with the San Antonio Express-News, shared with Snapped, that, quote, Maliek, he was enraged upon learning about Karlyn's affair. He forced her to report it to her line of command because it's one thing that's not allowed. So Sergeant McDaniels, in turn, he is required to report the extramarital affair to his superiors. The infidelity was punishable by a reduction in pay and loss of rank for both Karlyn and the soldier she was involved with. To nobody's surprise, Karlyn and Maliek's relationship goes from worse to worse in the wake of her demotion. Karlyn's roommate Marissa told Snap that Maliek became, quote, more obsessive and more demeaning towards her. Karlyn, though, she has had enough, and she tells her husband she wants a divorce, something he does not take very well. According to what Sergeant McDaniels told Snap, Maliek is constantly calling her, begging Karlyn to take him back. Things get so bad, Karlyn asked the Army to issue a no-contact order against Maliek, which that's pretty serious. And after finding out all of this, investigators head to South Carolina, where Maliek is stationed, in search of a lead. He seems to be pretty broken up. And crucially, when they tell him that Karlyn was murdered, he doesn't ask what happened. He asks why. Curious. Also curious. When investigators question him about the fact that he and Karlyn are getting divorced, saying, quote, she was done with you, right? She'd moved on. Maliek says, I don't know. I mean, a restraining order seems pretty definitive. But he says that he forgave Karlyn for the affair. And when investigators asked if he'd ever cheated on Karlyn, he said, cheat? No. Okay. When he's asked where he was on the night that Karlyn was murdered, Maliek says he was at home watching TV, texting on his phone, just hanging out, alone. He clocks in for work the next morning, which was confirmed by his superiors. So Severn is over 500 miles from Fort Jackson, where Maliek is stationed in South Carolina. So it seems improbable that he would have made that long drive in such a short amount of time. Still, investigators have to do their due diligence, and they take Maliek's phone, and he also willingly offers up DNA samples, his bank records, and an open invitation to search his car and his apartment. So, in other words, he is very cooperative. So, when investigators start talking to Maliek's neighbors, they all say that his car, a very distinctive Jaguar, never left his complex. A search of the activity on his Netflix account showed that he was at home streaming a movie. Investigators turned their attention back to the crime scene, and they learned that the used condom that was found at the scene belongs to the married soldier that Karlyn was having the affair with. They bring him in, and he admits that despite the pair getting booted down the ladder, there weren't any hard feelings, and that in fact, they were still seeing each other. He says that the last time he and Karlyn were together was 2 days before her murder. He tells them that they threw the condom, meaning he and Karlyn, they threw the condom out after they had been together. And like Maliek, he is very cooperative and says that investigators can search his house, his car, whatever they need. Like Maliek, his alibi for the night of the murder is that he was home alone. So this guy, he takes a polygraph and he passes. His cell phone doesn't ping off any towers near Karlyn's house on the night of the murder, and they can't find anything linking him to the murder, so he is ruled out as a suspect. However, another potential suspect rears their head when, after searching Karlyn's phone, detectives learned she was dating yet another soldier who lived in a different state. According to Karlyn's roommate, Marissa, the two of them had headed to Virginia Beach for a girls' weekend to blow off some steam, which is where she met this new guy who, it turns out, was an old friend from high school. What are the odds? Detective Kelly Harding of the Anne Arundel Police Department, this is one of the investigators on the case, she observed to Snap that Karlyn seemed, quote, a little lonely. So my guess, her family's in Texas, her roommate has her own life, her marriage is a mess. And Del Rio, where she's from, this is a small town, and she had joined the army to see the world. Then she's, almost right away, she hooks up with Maliek, they have a baby. She probably had a little bit of a shell that she needed to break out of. So, like Karlyn's local boyfriend, the Virginia Beach boyfriend has a rock-solid alibi, so out of the suspect pool, he goes. With nowhere to go but back to square one, detectives decide to revisit the relationship between Karlyn and Maliek. So initially, when they had searched his phone, it pretty definitively showed that it was at home in South Carolina. It wasn't pinging off any cell phone towers on the way to Maryland, anywhere near Maryland, in Maryland, so that seems like a dead end. Well, not so fast, because a closer look reveals that Maliek's phone data showed that he had, in fact, downloaded an app that is actively deleting the phone's data. As Detective Kelly Harding told Snap, quote, having a wipe app installed on your phone the day that your wife is murdered is very suspicious. Facts. Investigators now know they're onto something, so they keep digging and they hit a gusher. So even though this app that Maliek has installed on his phone was doing a pretty good job of wiping the data, it wasn't good enough because the forensics team was able to recover some text messages and calls that he was making to someone he called Dodo. Well, let me tell you, Dodo was not Maliek's dog walker. No, Dodo is Dolores Delgado, and she was Maliek's girlfriend. Yes, Karlyn was not the only unfaithful spouse in this marriage. So remember when investigators had questioned Maliek and asked if he had ever cheated on Karlyn, and he said, cheat? No. Like the audacity, like me? Cheat? What? Well, yes, he's cheating with Dolores Delgado. Dolores is 30 years old. She's an Army vet, and she is living in Florida. And so investigators realize they need to talk to her. So they get back on the road, head to Florida, and the minute that they show up at her door, she knows right away why they're there and says, quote, do you want to talk to me about Maliek? Yes, they do. So everybody goes to the local police station and they dig into her relationship with Maliek. They met in 2008 when they were deployed in Kuwait, and this is 6 whole years before he met and married Karlyn. It was an off and on relationship, and as James Warwick, assistant U.S. attorney for Maryland, told Snap, Dolores described the relationship as, quote, complicated, that she was well aware he had other women lining up for him, but she's not pressed about it because she's got other men. However, they just can't seem to quit each other. FBI Special Agent Jonathan Schaefer told Dateline the pair were, quote, best friends with a romantic bent. Dolores swears that she was not interested in breaking up Maliek's marriage to Karlyn, that she knew he was desperate to work things out with his wife, and, good friend that she was, Dolores says that she was actually providing relationship advice to Maliek, as a best friend does. Investigators tell her that Karlyn was murdered, and she appears shocked and denies that she had anything to do with it. So during the course of this conversation, another little truth bomb gets thrown into the mix when Dolores says that on the night of the murder, she was at Maliek's house in South Carolina, which he did not mention. As Detective Kelly Harding tells Dateline, quote, "If you have somebody that can account for your whereabouts during the time of the murder, why wouldn't you offer that to us? Why would you keep that secret?" And also, did they not get their story straight? Well, clearly they didn't get their story straight. Something else that they don't get straight is that when investigators searched Dolores' phone, and I guess Maliek didn't think to give her the memo about the wipe app, but they find all kinds of text messages between the two, and they are quite filthy. But there is a chilling text message amongst the filth. It comes before the murder, where Maliek says to Dolores, quote, "This gun is so dang loud." Gee, I can't imagine why he'd be concerned about a gun being too loud. This sends investigators into overdrive. They scour Dolores' social media and find that she was trying to sell some ammunition for a .357 revolver, which is the same weapon that was used in Karlyn's murder. They visit the store where the original purchase was made and learn that Dolores used to own a .357. Coupled with the text message exchange between Maliek and Dolores about loud guns, there are just too many links in the chain that connect these two to Karlyn's murder. As James Warwick, Assistant U.S. Attorney for Maryland, told Snapped, quote, "It was a critical compilation of evidence." In October of 2016, a little over a year after Karlyn's murder, Maliek and Dolores, who by this point are living in San Antonio, Texas, they are arrested. And this news generates a lot of national media coverage, and it compels a witness from Florida, where Dolores used to live. It compels one of her ex-boyfriends to come forward, admitting that he helped her dismantle, destroy, and discard a .357 revolver. This witness eventually led investigators to the Banana River, where the not-so-discarded or destroyed .357 revolver is recovered. Despite being in an advanced state of decay, the FBI were able to determine that this gun's serial number matched the one that was used to kill Karlyn. So while investigators can definitively link Dolores to the murder, Maliek is a much more slippery fish, as the evidence against him is more circumstantial. There's also the risk that Dolores and Maliek will turn on each other, making it nearly impossible to determine who did what. Investigators decide to rattle Dolores' cage by laying out the evidence they have against her, and they say, essentially, hey, we think that you're the accessory and that Maliek is the trigger man. Tell us we're right. Well, Dodo isn't a complete dodo, and she comes clean, telling investigators the truth about what happened the day of Karlyn's murder. She reveals that on August 24th, this is the day before Karlyn was found, that she came to Maliek's apartment and that he instructed her to stream movies and use his phone to establish that he was at home on the night of the murder. In the meantime, he took her car, not his flashy Jaguar, and headed north to Maryland. Dolores says that when he returned the next morning, he told her exactly what had happened. He already had a key to the townhouse, so he just walked right in. Karlyn was sitting in the living room, and he forced her to go upstairs. They fought, and the gun went off, bullet missing her. However, the remaining 3 shots went into 2 in her chest, 1 in her side. And in a woeful and pathetic attempt to make it look as though his wife was sexually assaulted, Maliek pulled her pants and underwear down around her ankles, and then he took his own baby out of her crib and put her in a dead Karlyn's arms before he bolted out the back door and, in his haste, leaving it open. Disgusting, truly. As I said, Dolores and Maliek, they are arrested and they are charged with interstate travel to commit domestic violence and using a firearm during the commission of a crime of violence. FBI agent Jonathan Schaefer told Snapped that he believes Dolores' involvement in the murder was due to some schoolgirl fantasy that with the wife out of the way, Maliek would be all hers, saying, quote, "I think Dolores was maybe harboring some type of hope that if Maliek killed his wife, that somehow he would come back to her. that she could have Maliek to herself. Dolores pleaded guilty to the 2 charges against her, which means Maliek will stand trial alone. She testifies against him, but paints this picture that he was completely torn up about Karlyn's murder, saying that he told her that he wanted to take himself out after the murder. They always say that. Except he said that had Marissa, that's Karlyn's roommate, been home, he would have killed her too. So I think that tells you all you need to know. Dolores says that Maliek even asked her, quote, why I didn't stop him. Okay. People magazine reported that Dolores helped to calculate how much gas he would need on the trip to Maryland, even buying him cans of gas so he wouldn't have to stop and potentially get picked up on any gas station cameras. She even made him a sandwich for the road. How thoughtful. Dolores claims that Maliek's whole motivation for the trip was that, quote, he was planning to come up and kill his wife if she didn't reconcile with him. As Assistant U.S. Attorney James Warwick so aptly said in court, quote, he didn't want to take no for an answer. If he couldn't have her, then no one was going to have her. No surprise, but Maliek's defense team attempted to lay the blame at Dolores' feet, pointing to a Facebook message she posted after Maliek had OD'd following a fight with Karlyn, where she, Dolores, had written, quote, this crazy biatch is going to be put out. Seriously, stop putting all your business on Facebook? Seriously? At any rate, Maliek's defense goes over like the lead balloon that it is, and he is found guilty of both charges and sentenced to life in prison plus 10 years. No possibility of parole. Dolores was sentenced to 17 years. Karlyn's family is raising her daughter, Vale. FBI Special Agent Jonathan Schaefer told Dateline that he believes Maliek retaliated against Karlyn because he couldn't control her, saying, quote, she was the first woman in his life that was willing and able to stand up to him, and he couldn't handle that. Or as Assistant U.S. Attorney James Warwick mused, relationships could end with Maliek Kearney, but they had to end on his terms. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of The Dark Side of Love. I'm your host, Bianca Sloan, and show your love for The Dark Side of Love by visiting thedarksideoflove.com for show notes and transcripts. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter to be notified about new episodes, and you can also find a link to my Patreon page where you can access bonus material and other fun stuff. Learn more about my suspense novels about the dark side of love by visiting biancasloan.com. Thanks for hanging out with me, and join me next time for another tale of love gone wrong. I'll see you on the dark side.